Hello, everybody. My name is Adam Thorne, and welcome to the Australian Aviation Podcast. I am joined this week not by Ben, who has decided yet again he's got better things to do.
I think Enoch still has him, Adam.
He does. Well, we don't know if he's alive or dead, but he's certainly no longer with us. Have you heard from Ben in the last? Have you spoken to him last week?
Look, I've heard some muffled sounds from the vents.
Yes.
I don't know if that bodes well or ill, because I do hear that Enoch does have the power to mimic the voices of those he has devoured.
And I'll also introduce my co-host, Jake Nelson. Jake, how are you?
I'm okay, Adam. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. We usually start the show by giving any kind of shout-outs and messages that we may have got. Have we got any positive, underline that one, messages?
We have had an email from Mark in Perth. Hello, Mark, if you're listening. Mark says, "Hi, Adam. Thanks. What am I, chopped liver?
Good work. Good work.
Hi, Adam. Just want to give you some direct feedback regarding the latest edition of AA with the Southern Cross on the front. This is now top-shelf aviation journalism, content and presentation. Having scanned through, I can't wait to read it cover to cover. A great range and selection of articles with depth and balance, in particular examining the aircraft on order, the Great Southern Cross, ATC Ops, and the change scene with Bonza up and running. To you and the team, well done and keep up the great work."
Now, I'm very grateful for that feedback. What does worry me slightly is it sounds that he said he scanned through it. He's yet to actually read it. So, I mean, I'm worried that he likes it initially, but it won't be as good in the end.
That's always the risk, Adam.
But we'll take it as a positive. I mean, he scanned through it. He's looked at the headlines. So that's pretty good, isn't it?
It is, and we're grateful to get any feedback like that. If you have any feedback specifically that is like that, please send it in. If you have any feedback about how you hated the magazine so much that you set it on fire, then please keep it to yourself.
Yes, exactly. Very good advice. Just generally in life, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. How I've always...
as a great woman once said, "Hate is gonna hate." You know.
Yes.
We've had another studio reconfiguration temporarily this week.
We've had another one.
Our screens seem to have gone missing.
I don't think that's a bad thing, though, because I know it's nice to have the branding in there, but in reality, they got in the way. It feels a lot more spacious now. There's a bit of feng shui.
I am concerned that this is Enoch's way of punishing us for revealing too many of his secrets. It could be a threat. That's all I'm saying.
It could be, yes. Now let's steam into the news, Jake, before this goes on to another extraordinary long tangent. The biggest news of the week doesn't involve a creature living in the vents, but more of a nicer...
Not that we know of.
Not that we know of, but of a nicer pet variety. Jake, tell us a bit more.
Yes, so this story came out of Virgin Australia, with though the ingenious headline that was used on the story was basically all me. Carry on waggage.
It's all right. It's not. I mean, you're very proud of this. You're very proud of it. And I'm not saying it's a bad headline, but
listen,
it's hardly...
it took a bit. It took some workshopping and massaging, but I think I really hit the... I considered furry on waggage, but that might have been a bit much. But Virgin is allowing pets on domestic flights. So this is all subject to regulatory approval. But if it is given the go-ahead, then within 12 months, small cats and dogs will be allowed to be carried in selected rows on specific domestic Virgin Australia routes. Now, these pets have to be in approved carriers, stowed under the seat in front. They will not be allowed to wander around the cabin. They will not be allowed to sit in your lap. So you can bring your pet with you into the cabin, but it has to stay in its carrier under the seat in front for the whole flight.
I mean, this is very discriminatory against bigger dogs, effectively, and bigger animals, because like you won't have a golden retriever sat on the seat next to you. And if there was that option, I'd actually choose to do that. If someone said, "Oh, there's going to be a dog sat next to you," absolutely.
I don't think CASA would approve of having large dogs running around the cabin, peeing on the emergency lighting.
So basically, they're going to be in like a basket. Effectively,
some kind of approved carrier. What the approved carriers look like, we don't look like. We don't know yet.
It's a basket essentially, and it's going to be put underneath the seat in front.
Yes,
well, that's not. I mean, like, look, I'm all for pets on aircraft, but I'm more worried about. I mean, is that going to be enough room for? Is Fido not going to like it down there?
Well, again, this is for like smaller dogs
Yeah.
and also cats. So if the dog or cat can survive in a carrier for a while, it's going to survive under the seat in front because it's the size of the carrier.
I see what you mean. So essentially, it doesn't matter where it's placed. They're still in.
They're still in the box. That Virgin is not allowing you to take the pet out of the carrier during the flight. It's better under the seat in front than in the overhead bins, surely.
I don't. Yeah. The only thing worse than getting hit by some hand luggage as you leave a plane is being struck by a dog. I'd imagine.
So if you want to bring your pet into the cabin, there will be extra fees, which Virgin is working out. Pets will still be eligible to be carried as cargo in the cargo hold.
What? Can you do that?
I believe so.
That's cruel, isn't
it? You can have pets transported as
I suppose you
as
can.
cargo.
I suppose you can. Yeah.
In carriers, again, can't have a golden retriever running around the cargo hold pissing on people's luggage. But you can still have pets carried as cargo through approved pet transport services. Approved assistance animals will still be allowed in the cabin at no additional cost, so things like guide dogs. Now, Virgin says that this comes from several surveys and market research that they've done. They found last year 70% of people would travel with their pet in the cabin, and 57% would fly more regularly if the option was available.
Is this just dogs and cats? Because I'm for all animals, but what I don't want to is like somebody having a snake or something under the seat in front, because I hate snakes, spiders, in fact any Australian native animal.
So what you're saying, Adam, is that you've had it with these. Now, what was the Bowdlerized quote from Snakes on a Plane? You've had it with these monkey-fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane,
yes,
as Samuel L. Jackson once said.
Yes, exactly. But that is my. I presume it's going to be purely restricted to dogs and cats. The other thing.
If the snake is in a carrier that it can't get out of.
Oh, I don't care. I don't care.
What's wrong with snakes, Adam?
They're awful.
They're lovely.
Not.
They're lovely little creatures.
They're not awful. They'll kill you.
It's not all hashtag. Not all snakes.
Of them will.
Obviously, you're not going to be bringing a taipan onto a flight.
Well, I don't know. People have pet snakes, don't they?
Yeah, but non-venomous snakes.
I don't care. I don't want that near me.
This is anti-snake discrimination. This is blatant mammalism.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're not going to stand
for it,
Adam.
we should just get rid of all the snakes, spiders. Australia, the food cycle or whatever it is, will sort itself out.
You're telling me that you wouldn't want someone to be able to bring their pet tarantula on a Virgin flight?
No, God no. So my concern is and also I don't particularly like cats either. So I think if you just keep it to dogs is what I'm for that. Now on the
disgraceful.
No, it's not. When they announced this story, they you can tell their comms team had a fantastic week because we got an extraordinary collection of photos of the dogs, and they'd actually dressed the dogs up in kind of uniform. So one had a little like pilot's
uniform, another one in a flight attendant's uniform.
Yeah, it's clear that they had a very good time doing this. Jane Halicka, the outgoing on her way out CEO, she's got personally involved in this photo shoot. I feel this was her this is her last play, and I love that. It's like, okay, so you're leaving the airline. This is your last big play as an airline CEO.
It's kind of you can pretty much do whatever you want now, can't you? I mean, what are they going to do, sack her?
Well, exactly. And she's gone, firstly, what we're doing, we're putting dogs on planes. And then secondly, she's gone, right, well, I don't care anymore. Let's spend a sizable whack of the budget in getting a tailor to make actual dog-sized suits and uniforms for them as well for the photo shoot.
Actually, I think these might be. I think the dogs might be actual Virgin employees. Adam.
That's ridiculous.
So
there's no. So you're telling me that if you're on a flight and then your baton goes off and it's from the pilot or whatever.
Are you saying that you personally, Adam Thorne, would not enjoy that?
Yeah. Well, at first it would be very amusing.
Would you not enjoy like a little terrier bringing you your tray of airline food?
Well, I mean. Yeah. It depends what standard they're trained up to. No, I'm all for dogs and flies. I think what they should do is relax the rules a bit more, so that you can have dogs on seats and stuff.
Well, I don't want to see. if the
But you're
dog...
not a fan of dogs, just so that listeners know.
Yeah, sure.
Because he's a heartless, awful, vile man, and he hates dogs. Why? What's wrong with you?
They make me uncomfortable. Adam.
Why do they make you uncomfortable? They're lovely. They're furry. They're happy.
It's a number of reasons, possibly stemming from a deeply unhappy childhood. Anyway, look, well-trained dogs like guide dogs and approved service animals, those should be allowed to on planes because people need their help.
Yeah.
But I don't want to have someone's Labrador bounding up and down the aisles, chewing
imagine anything better.
chewing on the seat cushions, peeing everywhere, making people sneeze. Yeah, because people have pet allergies. And so I think this is kind of a reasonable position for Virgin to take. And, there's safety issues as well if you have large animals running around the cabin.
Oh, really? I don't care. Just bring dogs on, bigger dogs, because I want to get a golden retriever. So I want to be able to take the...
You can get a golden retriever, or you can get as many golden retrievers as you want, Adam. They just probably shouldn't be running loose on a plane.
Well, anyway, right. Well, on that note,
and they're only single aisles too. Virgin only flies the 737.
This is true.
Yeah, you want a giant bulldog sitting there blocking the aisle while the flight attendants are trying to bring people their drinks.
I couldn't imagine anything better than a bloody good British bulldog sat there in the middle of the aisle. Great.
I mean, if you're ahead of the bulldog and you're desperately waiting for a Coke from the drinks cart, then you'd probably want someone to move the dog.
Anyway, let's move on before this goes on to too many dog style tangents. Now it was
getting a bit rough.
That was good, to be fair.
Thank you.
Was good. That was good.
I think you were about to go barking mad.
Yeah, all right. Sometimes you got to quit while you're ahead.
So let's hit pause on the pet story.
Yes, we hit pause on the pet story, and let's talk about something more important than dogs. That is cold, hard money, cold, hard cash, and Virgin's making a load of it.
They have. Virgin has done quite well in the first half of the 2023-24 financial year. So we got an internal memo. That basically said Virgin had made about $236 million profit off the back of $2.8 billion in revenue in the 6 months to the 31st of December. Now, this was last year, you recall, Virgin Australia returned to a full-year profit for the first time in quite a while, and that full-year profit was $129 million. So this is almost double last year's full-year profit in the first half of the year.
And now, obviously, the kind of background to this is that, obviously, Jane is leaving Virgin, and obviously the kind of official line is that she's doing this totally of her own accord. Other reports have suggested otherwise. We won't necessarily get into this. But nonetheless, you would look at this and the evidence that she has done a very, very good job, in my eyes, grow and grow and grow. The older background here is that for the 10 years, 11 years, Virgin was making enormous losses. By the time it went into administration, I think it was like $7-8 billion. This is an enormous amount. Then you obviously had COVID. They obviously went into administration. You then had to take it out of administration at the same time as you not only had COVID, but you had lockdowns that started and stopped and started and stopped. Almost impossible to run an airline in that situation. They initially, I think, had something like 60 737s when they came out of administration. They've then grown that up. I think we're up like 40% or something now. They're continuing now to buy new aircraft as well as lease them. So she's had to deal with absolutely everything. She's been handed the toughest card you could argue as CEO has been ever dealt as of an airline. And the idea that she's turned it round from losing up to $1 billion a year to making a profit of $236 million. And that's just in the half year, right?
That's the half year.
That's just a half year. That's also substantially more than we saw previously in the previous year. So actually the numbers would say she's been dealt with a very difficult card and she's done an exceptionally good job.
Yeah, the airline has also carried, since it left administration, so this was, since the administration ended, the Virgin has carried nearly 45 million passengers, as is seen in that internal memo. And the Virgin has done all this while maintaining reasonably good relations with the workforce. They've done so, largely escaping kind of the the bad press that has been surrounding Qantas. They've had some reliability issues in the last few months, of course, but they've Virgin has been doing quite well since it came out of administration. It's not up at Qantas levels, of course, but you'd have to say that it's in a very healthy position.
Now, the kind of the argument against this is that actually Virgin should be doing even better than this, because you've had it. Their rival is wounded. Qantas has all this bad publicity, all this negative chat, and that they should have taken advantage of this a little bit more. And also, clearly, the other subtext is that Virgin is looking to be relisting back on the ASX. This really should have happened quite a while ago. It's not happened yet, and it does appear from afar that they are struggling to find people that are willing to get involved in that. But nonetheless, you would look at that on the surface and say, this is yet more evidence that Jane's done a very, very, very good job.
Especially considering that most of Virgin's operations right now are domestic. They're flying a fleet that's basically all 737-800s. There's a couple of 700s and A320s flying over in the west for the regional operations, and you've got a couple of short-haul international routes, especially with the MAX 8s. But most of Virgin's operation is still domestic 737-800 flights. And so when you look at that, they've got code sharing agreements, but still, their international operation is not huge.
No. And on that note, we're going to pop for a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about MH370. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, welcome back. So my name is obviously, I'm going somewhere with this, Adam Thorne.
Interested to see where you're going.
Yes, and my birthday is the 8th of March. And
that's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate to be an editor of an aviation publication, and your birthday is the 8th of March. That is the same date as the biggest, or one of the biggest kind of aviation tragedies of all time, certainly probably the biggest aviation story of all time. And so on my birthday last week...
I wouldn't say the biggest aviation story of all time. I can think of a couple of aviation stories probably bigger.
You're just ruining the build-up. You're ruining the build-up. I mean,
I'm tempering everyone's expectations,
yes.
Adam.
Anyway, my birthday also signalled the 10-year anniversary of MH370 going missing. Obviously, everything has been written about this, but we did, maybe surprisingly, maybe not. We had a statement from the Australian government to kind of to sort of mark that day. What did they say, Jake?
Yeah, so so background for people who are not up on all the details. This was of course the flight that disappeared over the Indian Ocean on the 8th of March 2014 from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. 239 passengers and crew on board, including 7 Australians. No one has ever found the aircraft. There's been debris washing up on beaches over the last decade. But nobody has actually located where the aircraft has come to rest in the Indian Ocean. And nobody knows for certain why the plane went down. I believe that the dominant theory at the moment is that for whatever reason, we can only speculate, the pilot deliberately flew it off course and into the ocean. That is, the dominant theory. We're not saying that we endorse that theory or not, just saying that that's what most people are saying now. So this was, yes, one of the biggest aviation tragedies in history, and this year marked the 10th anniversary. So we had a joint press release from Catherine King, the Transport Minister, and Penny Wong, the Foreign Minister, saying that they recognise the ongoing heartache and grief of those who lost loved ones in the disaster, and the significant contributions that had been made to efforts to find the plane. The Minister said, quote, Australia coordinated what was one of the biggest search operations of its kind in history when the aircraft disappeared, searching over 3 million square kilometres above the water and more than 120,000 square kilometres under the water, sadly without locating the missing aircraft. We thank all of those who assisted in those efforts, including the Australian Defence Force, the Australian Maritime Safety Authority, the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, the Defence Science and Technology Group, Geoscience Australia, and the CSIRO. They went on to say the Australian government is supportive of all practical efforts to find MH370. Australia stands ready to assist the Malaysian government if it considers that Australian agencies are able to offer technical information as a result of their involvement in previous searches. So basically we're saying if you need our help again, we're ready to provide it.
There is, I don't know if you've seen it. There is a documentary on Netflix about this, and I wouldn't say it's good. I think it's appalling, because effectively what this documentary is a bunch of cranks and conspiracy theorists and people that clearly love this. They've got completely taken by this mystery. All of whom are talking about their different theories. None of whom seem to care less about any of the families or the people that have lost their lives. And out of all the people that they speak to in this documentary, the single only organisation that comes out with any credit is the ATSB, who is, as you may have said, are the kind of Australian air crash investigators, basically. And they actually talk quite candidly about how disappointed they are with, some of the reaction and how it's gone. One of the extraordinary things is, you would say in this day and age, how can an aircraft just vanish? But a lot of the reason is, of course, that actually air traffic control and monitoring of aircraft is still pretty much entirely done now on the ground, and that there are black spots everywhere. As we move into the future, you're going to see, I think it's Skytrack are going to do space-based aircraft tracking, so things like this will be less likely to occur, or you wouldn't just lose an aircraft. But nonetheless, the idea that we've got to 10 years on and we still don't really know what happened is quite extraordinary.
Well, there was a statement as well from the ATSB. Chief Commissioner Angus Mitchell said the search, this search again covered area of 120,000 square kilometres, high-resolution sonar. It was, to that point, the largest ever underwater search or survey of its kind. He said it was challenging due to, quote, very limited evidence. He said this evidence consisted of aircraft performance information and satellite communication metadata initially, and then long-term drift studies to trace the origin of debris which washed up in East Africa during the search. He said, our search area was defined by the continual assessment of the available evidence. We truly regret that evidence was not able to lead us to finding the aircraft's final resting place and to not be able to provide definitive answers to the families and the aviation industry as to the circumstances of the aircraft's loss. Now, Malaysia's Prime Minister has signalled that the Malaysian government is willing to reopen investigations if significant new evidence comes to light. So he said in a press conference in Melbourne, we have taken the position that if there is a compelling case, evidence that it needs to be reopened, we're certainly happy to reopen. Whatever needs to be done must be done. And apparently the Transport Minister in Malaysia has been in talks with this company, Ocean of Infinity, which led that second robotic search effort back in 2018.
Well, I hope I do get some information just for the families of those people involved, because I say the story kind of got a life of its own. And a lot of the stuff I don't think was very nice. Right. Anyway,
no, it's always. I mean, any tragedy like this, the injection of conspiracy theories and kooks and people, basically armchair diagnosing the problem, and saying what was it that was, I don't know, Chinese spies or UFOs or whatever other circumstance, that just compounds the tragedy for the loved ones of the people involved.
Exactly. Right, on that note, let's go for a break. When we come back, we'll have a bit more positive news. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, welcome back. So, apart from the 8th of March being the 10-year anniversary of MH370, it's also, perhaps aptly, International Women's Day. And obviously, the backdrop of this for aviation is a complicated message, because the kind of the bigger picture internationally is that we have a serious lack of women that become pilots and engineers, and of course those are the higher paid professions. And this has been something that the aviation industry has been trying to tackle for an awful long time. Both Qantas and Virgin kind of use International Women's Day and I think this is a good thing as a kind of publicity. Not statement, but to put women out there and to show that, yes, you can be a female pilot, yes, you can be an engineer, etc. So what did Qantas and Virgin do to mark the day, Jake?
Well, before I get into that,
go on.
I just want to give a message to our listeners.
Go on.
It's the 19th of November. International Men's Day is the 19th of November. If you want to celebrate International Men's Day, that's when it is, okay? 19th of November. So, Deb Laurie is currently still flying for Virgin. She joined Virgin a few years ago, and she has flown as part of Virgin's, I think, second annual all-female flight for International Women's Day. This was... This flight involved more than 30 women, pilots, cabin crew, ground crew, baggage handlers, ATCs, pushback drivers, and refuelers, all to create this all-female operated flight that went from Melbourne to Brisbane last Friday on International Women's Day. So Deb Laurie, you may remember, the trailblazing female pilot who famously won that court case over Ansett in the late 70s, early 80s, that cleared the way for female commercial airline pilots. Deb, by the way, also was honoured last year with a new flyover at Sydney Airport, which very aptly and fittingly will pass over Sir Reginald Ansett Drive, which he is probably, wherever he is now, very, very irritated with.
Yes. And obviously this comes or came a week after we had this set of results which looked at the gender pay cap for all major companies or all companies over 100 people in Australia. And obviously airlines fared quite badly. Their argument is that
there aren't enough women in higher paying positions.
Exactly, yeah. And their argument also is that in turning that round is not something that you can do immediately. That's something that's going to take a long time. And this is also something that's reflected in Australia in a lack of women in general, in kind of STEM, if you want to call it that, professions. And this goes back to an idea that when kids are in school, the boys and girls tend to be just as interested in the science, math sort of subjects. And as they rise up the school years, you see a little bit more of a drop-off and more of a drop-off. And then when you get to that point when they jump into careers, that's when you start to see a huge drop-off. Exactly why this is not... nobody necessarily knows. There's no... Well, rather than more, there's no one single reason. There's a variety of reasons. I've interviewed Deborah Laurie, I think, a couple of times now, and she's... I wouldn't say it's a controversial opinion, but she's very much against having kind of quotas in aviation, gender quotas. She says that's the wrong message because apart from the fact that she argues that is essentially sexist in itself, it's also unfair on a woman who gets a job because she might think, well, hang on a minute, I only got this because of the quota rather than because I'm good enough. And she says that what the industry needs to do is to be going in early. You need to be going into schools. You need to be getting that message out. You need to be doing things like this. You need to kind of organically fix the problem.
Showing an example.
Exactly. So you do get some criticism on the International Women's Day from brands that they use it as a kind of a publicity statement or that it's not necessarily genuine. But I actually think doing things like this, while they are to an extent a bit of a PR stunt, I think this is a good message. And also the fact they are able to do flights where every single person involved is a woman does show that progress has been made, because actually that's something that might have been difficult to do 10 years ago.
And it does show the need as well for something like International Women's Day, because if we look at Qantas has also done a couple of all-female flights on Friday. So there was a flight from Sydney to Melbourne, a return Jetstar service Sydney to Gold Coast. But if you look at Qantas's figures are better than the worldwide average, I believe, but still 93% of Qantas Group pilots are men, 96% of engineers are men. This is compared to the global figure, 96% of male pilots and 97% male engineers. So Qantas is doing a bit better than the global average, but even Qantas is still female pilots and engineers in the Qantas group are still very, very low. And so days like International Women's Day kind of highlight the struggles that women still experience in the workforce and in getting into these higher paid positions. And so everyone who's asking why there's no International Men's Day, A, there is, it's on the 19th of November, and B, women need a higher profile because they've had to fight harder than men to get into these positions. Completely
agree. Now, time is almost beating us, but we do have time for one more story which caught my eye from a couple of days ago. And this is a mid-air incident on a LATAM 787 Dreamliner that left 50 people injured and 12 in hospital. Sounds very dramatic. Jake, tell us more.
Yeah, this was on Monday. Now, this was a flight from Sydney to Santiago via Auckland. The plane was CCBGG was the registration. And this plane experienced a sudden, basically 300-foot drop over the Tasman Sea. This was around 2 hours after takeoff. Unrestrained passengers and crew were violently thrown around the cabin. People hit the ceiling. Apparently there was one poor bloke in the toilet who had a terrible time of things. Pilots.
I know we shouldn't laugh, but it is quite funny.
Hopefully it was just. Hopefully, it seems horrible to say. Hopefully, he was only injured. But these people crashed into the ceiling, those who weren't wearing seatbelts, before the pilots managed to regain control of the plane. There was one passenger saying people were thrown out of their seats, hit the top of the roof of the plane, thrown down the aisles. It was madness. He said some of the roof panels were broken from people being thrown up and knocking through the plastic roof panels in the hallways. There was blood coming from people's heads. People were yelling and screaming. It was chaos.
It's like a horror movie.
It is.
But what I don't understand is, and for those of you, and I don't know the exact science of it, but what I do know is that essentially turbulence cannot flip a plane. Bad weather cannot flip a plane.
Well, the plane wasn't flipped; it just dropped.
Yeah, exactly. But what I mean is, so the idea is that normally when you enter turbulence, however bad or not it may be, the aircraft is designed to withstand this many, many, many times over. So
especially the Dreamliners with that composite body.
Yeah, and also that it sounds like a weird thing to say, but if you were to somehow be outside the aircraft, looking at the aircraft, you really wouldn't notice it that much. It's because you're inside it that it feels a lot worse than it is.
You probably also wouldn't notice it too much because you would be too busy asphyxiating.
Yes.
Or freezing.
Or
both.
freezing, yes. But
you would be more concerned with the impact, with the effects of gravity on you, I'd imagine, as you plummeted thousands of feet through the air, to worry about whether that particular plane was experiencing some turbulence.
Yes, anyway, but the point is that it does sound like this is more than just turbulence itself. It does. I know obviously they will do a big investigation and find out more about this, but this does seem this is beyond anything that you would normally get with turbulence. I know you do sometimes get stories of people who, their head hits the ceiling and stuff. And a lot of these times, I think they're very overblown. But this does sound like it was something far, far worse. Who's going to investigate this? Do we know when we're going to find out kind of what happened?
So there's sort of, there's kind of jurisdictional issues that need to work out because, obviously the plane is registered, I believe, in Chile. It was made in America. It was en route from Australia to New Zealand. I think the Chileans have told Radio New Zealand that they will be participating in the investigation, but then the New Zealanders would be leading it. I don't think we've got confirmation of that from New Zealand yet. There have been kind of speculations. Was this human error? Was this a software thing? Was this a hardware thing? One of the passengers said that once the flight had landed safely in Auckland, the pilot had sort of come back through the cabin, and he said that he asked the pilot what had happened, and the pilot said, my instrument panel went blank just for a second. I lost control of the plane. This is per that passenger. So if the instrument panel did indeed blank out in the middle of the flight, that's probably not a good thing to happen. No. But it's this was a statement from LATAM that said as well, the plane experienced a technical problem during the flight which caused a strong movement. So the indications at the moment are that somehow the plane has suffered some kind of technical glitch that caused this. LATAM did put on a sort of replacement flight the next day for people who still wanted to go on to Santiago, though there have been reports that obviously and quite understandably people were afraid to board that replacement flight because of what they'd just been through. So it's at this stage we don't know what happened, but the signs currently are pointing to some kind of technical problem.
If you were scared of flying and you were on that flight, you would be terrified. And if you weren't scared of flying, you probably are now.
Quite possibly.
We haven't got, though, we've got kind of one. We've not got any kind of footage from what happened on board. Generally speaking, when anyone's in a life and death situation now, the first thing they do is get their phone out.
Well, we saw that on the Alaska Airlines flight. And speaking of, this is, more bad news for Boeing because here they're under investigations over this 737 MAX 9 blowout, and suddenly the 787 Dreamliner, which is their main sort of international workhorse, or one of their main international workhorses nowadays, flagship whiz-bang, plane with all this carbon fiber and all this technology and all this comfort, almost fell out of the sky.
Yes, and that is a very good point, because the one saving grace Boeing have had over the last sort of 10 years or so is that the Dreamliner has actually been an extraordinary success story. I think we spoke about this on the show, whether it was last week or the week before. The Dreamliner was effectively the first sort of major aircraft to be made of these modern materials, which basically means it's more fuel efficient, which means that you can either fly a lot further on the same tank, or effectively it's costing you less money. The Dreamliner is both a workhorse aircraft that can, do your kind of common or garden trip, but it's also ultra long range if you put the right amount of seats in it. So it's, you say the two biggest aircraft for them are the Max and the Dreamliner. The Dreamliner has until now largely been free of scandal.
Well, we do forget sometimes, Adam, that the Dreamliner was severely delayed.
Yes.
Like, they announced it in 2004, and the first deliveries weren't for years after that. And I think at the big reveal of the Dreamliner, there were people walking around and seeing that they could see right through the fuselage, because the display model of the Dreamliner that they wheeled out hadn't been finished yet.
When they unveiled the Dreamliner, I was not old and irrelevant. I was cool and young and had hopes and dreams.
And now you're here in this studio with me.
Yes.
But this is, by the way, a timely reminder. This is why on a plane they tell you to keep your seatbelt fastened while you're in the seat. Obviously, if you're moving up and down the aisles, or if you're going to the bathroom, you can't, fasten your seatbelt. But if you're in your seat, you got to have your seatbelt fastened. This is why. If there's turbulence, or if there's like a sudden drop like this, you will hit the ceiling and it will hurt.
And the last thing you want, of course, just to bring this show to a close and go back to where we started, is the golden retriever sat in the seat next to you, flying around.
Well, this is another reason why you
cabin.
probably shouldn't have loose golden retrievers on planes, Adam, because how are you going to put a seatbelt on a golden retriever and make it stay on the golden retriever?
If I was going to die in any way, I 100% would want to die because a golden retriever has just been flung in my face. If it makes
it would also very severely hurt the golden retriever, Adam.
Yeah, and that would be the worst thing. I'd rather be like, take me, don't take the golden retriever.
Before we do close the show, Adam, a bit of an announcement from us.
Yes, we should have done this earlier.
Yes, we should have done this earlier, Adam, but you were just so eager
to get
to the dogs.
Yes.
As this magazine, some of our feedback says, has gone. But Australian Aviation has expanded onto 2 new social media platforms. We are now on Threads, so that is the Instagram, effectively the Instagram equivalent of Twitter. You can find us on Threads at the same handle as our Instagram, so that is Aust Aviation HQ. Say that again. We are on Threads as Aust Aviation HQ. And we are also on Blue Sky, which is this new sort of non-federated, this new federated, sort of non-decentralized alternative to Twitter, which I'd still refuse to call X. It is, meant to be a more open sort of platform than Twitter was. I believe it actually originally spun off from Twitter, but there's more and more people getting on Blue Sky, especially with the technical issues that Twitter has been having. So we are on Blue Sky as well. Fittingly, we are the first Momentum media publication to be on Blue Sky. I mean, yes. Australian Aviation and Blue Sky, it's a match made in heaven.
It's good. Yeah, it's excellent.
But you can find us on Blue Sky as well at australianaviation.com.au. So it's at australianaviation.com.au on Blue Sky. We are there. We are on Threads, and we are posting regularly to both of those new platforms as we look to branch out and spread our wings.
We're spreading our wings in the industry. We're also putting the other publications at this company to shame. This is a trailblazing effort.
It is a real Blue Sky thinking on our part, and real Threads thinking as well.
Yes. And on that note, we will wrap it up before we talk more drivel. Thank you very much, Jake.
Thank you, Adam.
And we will be back on this show the same time next week, possibly with or without Ben. But from now, for us, goodbye.
We'll have to check the vents, yeah.
Goodbye.